right, everybody, welcome into the Fresh Takes podcast with Russo and Felice, live from fingerlakes1.com. Beautiful Seneca Falls, New York, even though it's a little bit colder than I think we'd prefer to be right now. But either way, I am Paul Russo. Across from me, as always, the man, the myth, a very happy legend himself today, though, Nick Felice. Nick, how's it going? Happy...
I'm as happy as you are, Paul.
Right, happy Wednesday, but you are very thrilled right now.
It is hump day. There I am.
The web thing takes a second for me
but yeah, I'm in fall right now. I think my Knicks and your Heat close them out tonight in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference first round, potentially in the playoffs for the first time since 2012.
Nick, we have a potential mic problem with you at the moment. Yeah. Can you where the cord plugs in? No, on the welcome to live production. Yeah, where your hand is, can you unplug where the silver thing is and then plug it back in? Live production, everybody. Yep, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Now, can you hear me?
Oh, still nothing. This is diabolical in nature.
Do I move over?
I'm gonna have to adjust the cameras. As we do this live, I don't know what's going on fully here, but yeah, head on over to the couch. Nothing like live stuff here, everybody. So we get Nick adjusted.
Hang tight.
Pull that mic into you, bud.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah, now you're there. So let's
Let's move the camera.
We'll throw you up here because I'm gonna have to probably maybe go back over there, but there you go. Go ahead.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is this is the new spot. So you can hear me.
For today, yeah, I'm gonna have to investigate that mic. 'Cause you work fine on sound check, but that's live. It's live production.
That's how it's done here, folks. Yeah, like I was saying, Knicks, Heat, closing them out tonight in the Eastern Conference first round. So looking forward to that.
Right.
And it could be potentially the first time the Knicks and the Heat met in the playoffs since 2012, when the "What If Jeremy Lin's Played" series. Could we have won that series?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you never know.
Could have changed.
But the reason why I was saying you're happy is because the Pirates, you guys stepped up and paid somebody, Brian Reynolds.
Yeah. I'm excited about that too. I'm in season with basketball right now, but definitely focused on my baseball. That's my number one team, number one sport. Currently, we were the best team in the National League just a couple days ago. Currently, we're tied with the Braves for the best record in the National League. Still in first place in the NL Central for the third day. So enjoying that because even when they were good in 2013 to 2015, I probably can count two handfuls of days where we were in first place for those 3 years total, which is nuts to say. But, signed Brian Reynolds, good news. It was a nice deal.
Yeah.
I honestly think his worth is more than that, but
but
we'll take him. Glad he wants to be here. We're not building a championship team. We're building a dynasty here in Pittsburgh. Because if we can win, especially it's April. I like to dream a little bit.
Right.
Let's dream till July. I'm not dreaming all the way to October right now. Let's dream to July. Say we're still in first place in July. And we have the first overall draft pick in this year's MLB draft, which is in July during the All-Star weekend. And All-Star week, I guess. But there's a guy named, I forget his first name, Cruz for LSU. They say he's probably one of the best talents out there since Bryce Harper.
Oh.
So this guy is a legit stud, center fielder for the LSU Tigers, they were the number one team in the nation. I'm not sure what they are right now. They were number one coming into the year, but he's having a phenomenal season. Add him onto a team that's already in first place and has been building up top 10 draft picks for the last half decade. And we already have guys like Brian Reynolds signed, Brian Hayes. I hope O'Neal Cruz is next. I even hope David Bednar is next as well. We start signing some guys, start building up the farm, which we already have been. Got some pitchers coming up this year. Pitching staff's looking good this year already. I'm just saying, watch out for the Pirates.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was thrilled to see that they just stepped up, went up to the plate for him, and got it done. So, before we move any further, though, I have to handle some podcast business. I thank DeSano Propane. They're 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. You can go online at DeSanoPropane.com for more information, or you can call them toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSano Propane, and as Nick can attest, I'm a big car guy. You know, I like my cars.
I like the Hot Wheels back in the day.
Sure. But grown-ups, we can go to Auburn Auto Group. When it comes to selection and service after sale, Auburn Auto Group has been the premier destination for new and used buyers for close to 40 years. Got a nice long-standing service here going out with our sponsors today. Among the brands offered at the Route 5 in Auburn location, they include Chevrolet, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Honda, Toyota, and Subaru. And thanks to their wide range of makes and models, you're sure to find your new or used car at Auburn Auto Group. So, without further ado, Nick, let's tackle our first discussion here because we got 2 main ones that we know. We alluded to one, obviously a big one, and But the NFL draft also gets going here technically tomorrow, but I always call it the weekend, But gets going here. But first, quite the interesting first round so far of the NBA playoffs. It's been nutty. I think we have to start obviously with what I call Dillon Brooks versus the NBA at this point. Look, I'm all for the smack talk, and to provide some context here if people don't know. He going after LeBron's a bold strategy. Going after any of the all-time greats is a bold strategy, especially in the playoffs. Typically has not worked well, for said individuals, but more or less called them old, not afraid to poke the bear. And since then, it's been all Lakers and been all pretty much LeBron, and Dillon Brooks has gone into hiding, more or less. Look, I know you're not a big LeBron guy by any means, but, I also get the sense you're probably not exactly the biggest Dillon Brooks guy either to that end. So what did you make, I guess, of initially the comments in the first place? Because my reaction was very shocked, and I'm like, why would you even remotely, as he'd say, that he doesn't mind poking the bear, but why would you want to poke the bear in when games matter the most, right? Like, it's just crazy to me. Crazy.
Yeah, it was stupid. The comments were stupid. Obviously, like you just said, I'm not a huge LeBron guy or Dillon Brooks, so this series, I'll be honest, I haven't caught much of it because I just don't care who wins. And been focused on the Knicks series and some of the other series in the Eastern Conference. Not really worried about the West right now. But it was stupid comments, especially for LeBron, who I'm pretty sure has never lost in the first round. And let's be real. This Grizzlies team is no 2 seed. Mm-hmm. They're a 4 or 5. They're not a top team in the NBA. The Grizzlies. We're talking about the Memphis Grizzlies to win the NBA championship. Come on.
Who was saying for them to win the championship, though?
You put them in they're a 2 seed, so you think they got a shot at the NBA Finals.
Sure.
I think their seed is misleading. They're not that good, and the loss of Steven Adams has hurt them tremendously.
Yeah. Yep.
And got a lot of guys who. They did play last year's playoffs, got the experience there, but when you're going against LeBron, it's a whole different story, and then it's a different challenge. And they've had a lot of off-the-court issues, mostly because of Ja Morant, and not to mention, even Dillon Brooks getting a fight with, who was it, the guy who was on Fox there, Shannon Sharp.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They've had that stuff. So that's kind of on the court problems.
On the court, off the court.
in a way. So they've had a lot of problems this year. It's been an interesting year for the Memphis Grizzlies, which has been one of their best seasons record-wise in a very long time.
Yeah, it's...
So this is it's looking like this is the end of them. I don't know if it's going to be 5 games, 6 games. Maybe they'll push 7. But it's looking like this is the end of a very disappointing Grizzlies year.
Yeah, it's strange because this is arguably the greatest year that the franchise has ever had numerically speaking, anyway, right? But yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to me, I guess, now, if, like, when you think back on it a little bit. But, like, the fact that I don't know if their seed's deceiving necessarily as much as it is the West. The West is, I wouldn't say they're wide open, that it's wide open, but, like, I've been having a hard time to pick somebody definitely out of the West than the East in that sense. You know what I mean? Like, in the East, and this is funny because, I mean, we're going to talk about here in a second anyway, but, you know, with the Bucks are beyond in trouble, right? The Celtics have shown some cracks in the foundation against the Hawks, but, like, I expect them to beat the Hawks tomorrow night.
You know, it's in Atlanta.
Right. But like when you look back on it to a degree, it's like, okay, maybe the Nuggets are the A1 team at the moment still in the West, but like it's one of those things where it's like you can't necessarily write off the Lakers, I guess, at this point, right? You can't write off Phoenix. Can't write off really anybody in the West, to be fair. I mean, outside of Memphis, honestly, at this point for me. Like, they've I mean, technically they've played themselves out of the series. Now, part of it, you know, is Dillon Brooks, but, like, you know, John Morant, the fact he's playing with that hand injury is kind of crazy to me, just the way he fell on it. I think most wrist injuries that we've seen, or hand injuries too, come from when the hand goes, like, back in nature. Like, that's how I broke my wrist back in the day, it was like at the angle, not when you, like, roll over on it, like, frontwards. I think the only time I've ever seen the frontward one is with baseball, when a guy dives for it and just rolls on his arm. So it's kind of crazy to think that that's happening, but, like, yeah, I mean, Steven Adams out hurts, although I don't know how much it's actually kind of hurting them in a way. That Tillman guy's played really great. To the point that, I mean, now kind of looking at it a little bit, it's like he kind of handles AD a little bit better than probably Steven Adams can in a way, just in terms of maybe like the horizontal athleticism. But I mean, to that end, it's not like the Lakers are going to be overwhelming them. It's just that I think you just gave them so much ammunition that, like, come hell or high water, they're just going to beat you.
The Lakers are killing them at the mental part of the game.
Yeah, right, yeah.
100%. And you can't do that. As much as you can say about LeBron, he's old. His team's not that great around him, even though they've gotten better after the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. He's still got more experience than anybody else. I mean, this guy knows what it takes to play in the playoffs. Over a 4-series potential winning it all, I just don't see the Lakers have enough to get to the finals or past the second round. The only thing I'm really worried about, I'm not predicting, you know, I'm not saying that the Heat and the Knicks are into the second round, but I'm going to say it right now that they're into the second round. Same with the Celtics. Also, potentially if the Warriors win. What I'm nervous about these NBA playoffs, and especially in the second round, is that you're going to have a Suns-Nuggets series, great series. You're going to have a Celtics-Sixers series, great series. Even Heat-Knicks is going to be a great series. And they're just going to get overshadowed by the Warriors-Lakers series.
Right.
That's just me looking ahead, and I'm just nervous about that. I still rooting for the Kings, hoping they can knock off. They were a Harrison Barnes shot away from going up 3-1 in that series. So
yeah, it's kind of weird because, like, the West, like, I know Fox is playing tonight, but, like, I don't know how effective he's going to be. Yeah, I mean, the way it sounds, yeah. I mean, I don't know how effective he's going to be in that sense. I mean, I kind of lean the Warriors again there. I don't know. I want to head back east at this point. And I guess this is going to be a multifaceted one because I don't know if we can necessarily do the whole entire Jimmy Butler discussion thing at this point without bringing up maybe the grander scheme of the landscape at this point. Because, I mean, now we're 2 days removed from it, and I think a lot of the takes have kind of just been completely wish-washed out. at this point. But being the Heat fan, I do have to give the guy the just due. I mean, Jimmy Butler.
It was the greatest,
Yeah.
one of the greatest single game
Yeah.
postseason performances I've ever seen.
Yeah. But we're inching at this point, and it's weird because we were kind of split. Collectively, we were split, right? I mean, you were on the Knicks. I was leaning Cavs. Cavs have just looked completely, I wouldn't say outmatched, but outplayed in that sense. The game plan for the Cavs has been really confusing to me. Whereas the Knicks have kind of gone with a singular focus of what, I wouldn't say maybe necessarily what they've done all year, but they've kept it very much so singular focus that, okay, Jalen's number one. If we can't get Jalen, it's Julius. And then at that point, it's, I wouldn't say an all-out distribute-out factor, but like the Mitchell Robinson like renaissance within the playoffs right now has been kind of awesome to see. And that's against, two bigs in Cleveland. I mean, they're all two bigs in that starting five. It's kind of been awesome to see, but we are essentially at this point, and this might come back to bite me here, but we're looking down Knicks Heat in the next round, more or less, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I'm positive that could happen. The only thing that concerns me is, for us, is that the Cavs and the Bucks do have two of these next three games at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking about they win tonight. It's 3-2. All they got to do is win on the road in New York and Miami, and all of a sudden you're in a Game 7 at home where anything can happen. So I would like to think the Knicks and the Heat are going to meet in the second round. Hopefully they both can get it done tonight. But there's a lot of work to do still. I mean, you got to go out and play 48 minutes and win a game still. So this isn't over, but I'm positive because of the percentages, 95% of teams that go up 3-1 do win the series. So I think that stat is high because there is so many 3-1s. A lot of the times you see teams steal game one and that's all they win, or they steal a game in their first home game. So a lot of times the series does become 3-1, and there's been not very many 3-1 comebacks. So the percentages of 95% is high because of that. So
Right.
I don't know. I'm positive. Are you positive? You believe in that? Knicks Heat?
Yeah, I mean, there's still that element in the background, at least with the Heat, with me. Just knowing the way the team is right now, like.
I mean, we're playing the Cavs. You're playing the number one seeded Bucks.
Yeah. I mean.
Best player in the world, Giannis.
Yeah, dinged up. But I mean, at the same token, I mean, there's a lot of players on both sides dinged up right now that, part of it could just be kind of like a wash deal. Either way.
I think this is the Eric Spoelstra. Like, we need to remember why he's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the league.
I mean, I don't disagree with that portion of it.
We don't put him up there.
No, I mean, I've been banging that drum for years. I know you finally have come around on it here the past really handful of years, give or take. I mean, there's still people out there that I know of anyway that really pulled a, LeBron and Dwayne and Chris Bosh card with it. I'm like, yeah, but, at that point, you still got to be a really good coach. You have three egos, albeit with different levels that you have to control in that sense and stuff like that. But, at this point, too, I guess the coaching numbers on that element haven't been, or they don't lie, right? I mean, they haven't told any lies. It is funny, though, because I think in this series, that's where one of the biggest differences is being made, is on the sideline. And this isn't to disparage Budenholzer by any means, but, like, if you're in a 13-0 deficit run, like, how do you just not call a timeout at some point? I mean, you had him to burn, and he just didn't use them. That's something that, you kind of saw Spoelstra kind of do is, any time when the Heat were kind of chipping away a little bit, he would kind of cause some sort of delay if the Bucks kind of were trying to snatch them momentum back, whether it was call timeout or there was one element to me that kind of stuck out where I forgot who it was necessarily guarding Giannis, but Giannis drove and got called for there was a defensive foul. Giannis drove, they call foul. And Spoelstra was grab, not grab, but grab one of the refs. It was just kind of like, walked. He was trying to, make a case that something happened, right? And kind of delayed the game enough that, Giannis was in the line and stuff like that, and kind of, at least makes the other team kind of think about what's going on, something like that. So, yeah, it's interesting, kind of, we aren't used to seeing one seeds kind of get I wouldn't say throttled, because it hasn't been a throttle by any means, any of these games really, outside of maybe the Heat loss in this. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the Heat get the win tonight. It's one of those interesting. I don't know if they get the win tonight. Game 6, Friday night back in Miami, should they obviously get to that point, I think that's where they get the win. I mean, at that point, it's must win for them anyway if they got to that point. So,
the last thing
it'd be interesting, yeah.
Last thing I want to touch on is how big of a joke the Clippers are.
Well, I'll let you go first. Yeah, go ahead.
Like, they're never going to win. Like, the Clippers are the Nets. Sorry, Pat. Paul's brother, Pat. Big Brooklyn Nets guy. The Clippers are like the Nets, and they're like the Mets, and they're like the Jets. And you're never going to win. The Islanders, never going to win. You're not New York. You're New York's little brother. And, well, I guess the Clippers are L.A., but you get the point.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are always hurt for like half of it, load management for the other half. But I don't know, man. The Clippers they're just an absolute joke, and they'll never win a championship. It's just embarrassing that the Lakers are already better than them again. I don't know if I'd go as far to call them the Nets, only because the Nets had this just outright expectation. And I guess the Clippers did in a way, but like the Lakers kind of held that more so this year still, in my opinion anyway. So, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because, and I don't want to dive too much off the rails because I don't know certain details necessarily, but I know Kawhi came out today that he tore his meniscus, and clearly there was an injury there, I guess, but also in the middle of the series you get the news that his sister is convicted to life in prison for murdering a woman in a casino bathroom. And I've never been in that position before. I know you haven't been in that position before. I don't think many people really out there have been in that position before where their sibling is convicted of a very heinous crime. I don't know how that would affect me mentally in the middle of a very high-pressure situation. It's weird because obviously, you knew Paul George would be out this whole series, no matter what. You can't plan for, let alone the off-court stuff, but the on-court issue where clearly there was an injury with Kawhi, and I can understand, I get the frustration, I do. I mean, Kawhi, even though his Spurs years were up against, peak fandom, really, I guess, of being a Heat fan in a way, he's been one of my favorite players to just kind of watch. And it's been tough, and I have been having lots of questions, I guess, about where he kind of stands, all time and within stuff and everything like that in a way. But it does make you wonder, who's really at fault here? Is it us, the fans, the media? Us, the media, I guess, as well in that sense. But because I think it's worth maybe acknowledging at this point that, maybe the Spurs doctors didn't get him right at this point. And we're kind of looking at a body that just has not been able to get back to what it once was because of another person's malpractice. Well, I mean, he's going to be known as the load management guy.
I guess, yeah.
He's the one that started it all. It's been going on, but yeah, it's gotten bad over the years because of Kawhi and how it all started. So he's a great player. I think he could have been one of the best, but the load management thing, I don't think he cared that much to be the best. So,
See, that's where I kind of disagree with that. And it might be just I have some recency stuff going on here because like I know you follow me on Instagram and maybe some people watching and listening do as well. But I got done reading the Rickey Henderson biography last night, and I'm not trying to draw comparisons to the two. They're very two different individuals overall, different backgrounds, different upbringings and stuff like that, and even different playing styles within their own sports. But Rickey tended to be a fairly reserved person off the field in terms of I'm not going to thrust my family into the spotlight type stuff. I'm not going to give reporters perceived ammunition to affect me. This is my line of work, this is where I'm going to be, and everything else personal. I see a lot of that stuff in Kawhi, to be quite honest, and that's where I think maybe there are people within the media circles that have been very much so rushed and rash and unjustifiably put him into scenarios where I don't think that that's where he actually is, to be quite honest. I don't find him to be the bad recluse. I find him to be the good recluse who wants to just, off the court, probably just be Kawhi, And I think that's where things just kind of get crossed up in the wires. To be honest, you go from the biggest market, in Canada, media-wise, being Toronto, to the biggest market, or second biggest media market in America being
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Sorry, I had a massive brain fart there for whatever reason. So, one of those things where I don't know. I think I know where I think the truth may be, but it's probably somewhere more in the middle, in that sense.
Got a great laugh.
He does, yeah. All right, let's transition over here to the NFL draft. It begins tomorrow on Thursday if you get around to listening and watching us, today, whenever. This draft has got a lot of just different surrounding factors in it.
Jets need a QB?
Well, not anymore, but so I'm not going to run through the whole top, the whole first round, but Carolina has the first pick from Chicago, then Houston, Arizona, the Colts. Pick 5 is Seattle from the Denver trade with Russell Wilson. Then you have the Lions at 6, Raiders at 7, Falcons at 8, Bears are at 9, yada, yada, yada. This draft is really fascinating. It's one of the first times in a few years I haven't really dove deep, and there's not a lot to dive deep on. I think that's a lot of maybe just my college football watching and consumption has, I wouldn't say never been higher, but it was running pretty good this fall in terms of watching different games and different teams and stuff like that, to the point that I have, in all honesty, a very minority opinion on this draft class and where it kind of falls. And I think a lot of it has to do, obviously, with the quarterbacks, and this is where it comes into, okay, who's actually going number 1? We've heard literally, I think, all of the projected top 5 quarterbacks in this draft been listed at number 1 at certain points. So it's quite interesting. We'll dive into that. I have some stats to talk about for each of them, and kind of a back-end guy. But for you with this draft, Nick, how have you kind of seen it? So coming into it, tomorrow.
Well, when I think of the NFL draft, I think about 2020, 3 years ago, because this was the first thing that was that sports came back from after the pandemic there. The old virtual 2020 draft. So it was a big deal when the draft came around 3 years ago. So this draft, though, 2023, I think we have a superstar in Bryce Young. I know you're going to bring some stats up, but I think he's a superstar. I think the Panthers would be crazy not to take him at 1. They traded up for this reason. And, he's a Southern kid. I'm not sure where he grew up. But,
From the SEC, yeah, sure.
yeah.
Obviously with Bama.
So I think it'd be a great fit. It sucks that the Broncos don't have the 5th pick because, in their minds, they have their quarterback. But I still...
It probably wouldn't hurt to get a quote-unquote development guy in there.
Yeah, it'd be something how the Seahawks play it. Are they going to go quarterback? I know they signed Geno Smith, but obviously Geno Smith, nice story and all, but is on the tail end of his career. So they got to start thinking quarterback, too, for the future.
Mm.
So it'd be interesting to see what they do. The Jets are not looking for a quarterback. They got their man Aaron Rodgers.
Well, not to interrupt, but it's interesting. You look at, to me anyway, really, I guess, the top 8 in the draft because, Justin Fields with the Bears, they're going to go with him at this point, right? So, Carolina, definitely in the market for a quarterback. Houston, definitely in the market for a quarterback. Arizona at 3, I don't think they're in the market for a quarterback, at least not perceived to be. Colts are in the market for a quarterback. Seattle's a little bit of a toss-up. I lean no, but I could see them picking somebody there just as a development type thing. Lions, I say no. I'm kind of riding the Goff thing at the moment. Raiders, no. They signed Jimmy Garoppolo. The Falcons, again, I see them as a no because I think they're going to ride with Ritter. But I could see them maybe picking somebody there. But out of the perceived top 8, I really only see 3 teams outright in the market for a quarterback.
And that is Carolina, Houston,
and Indianapolis.
Minneapolis.
Yeah. So let me do the stats for these quarterbacks here. So I have the top 5 ranked in order here from ESPN, and that would be Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and Hendon Hooker. And I have one wild card in here who I see as actually being probably, in my mind, the most pro-ready and ready to go in the NFL. So Bryce Young, Alabama, career 624 completions on 949 attempts. It's good for 65.8%, 80 touchdowns, 12 interceptions for 8,356 yards, and has rushed career-wise for only 162. C.J. Stroud of Ohio State, 575 of 830. That's good for a 69.3%, 85 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 8,123 yards, and 136 rushing yards. Anthony Richardson may be the best dual threat, although I don't think he is, from Florida, 215 for 393. He has the least experience out of the group of 5, and really 6 here if you count my wild card guy. Just a hair over 54.5% completed percentage, and this is where the stats prove that he's had the least. 24 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. 3,105 yards, and this is the thing, he's rushed for 1,116. Will Levis from Kentucky, 479 for 738, 64.9%, 19 touchdowns for 10 interceptions, 2,406 yards with 742 rushing. He had spent his freshman and sophomore years at Penn State before transferring to Kentucky. Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, 632 for 944 in his career in college. Good for a 66.9% percentage, 80 touchdowns for 12 interceptions, 8,974 yards, 2,079 rushing. Spent, however, freshman year through his junior year at Virginia Tech, and then the last 2 with Tennessee. Go ahead.
Wild card? I'm ready.
Okay. My wild card, I'll do the stats first. This is somebody I did see in person. 826 for 1,236 on the attempt, 66.7% completion percentage, 65 touchdowns to 30 picks, 9,219 yards with minus 274 rushing. So not great in that sense, but you can throw the ball around. Any idea who that quarterback might be?
Well, you said you saw him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with Pittsburgh.
Not Pittsburgh, not Slovak.
NC State.
Nope. It's a non-conference team of Syracuse.
Oh. Well, they usually start with minders.
Easy there, considering you play Indiana School of the Blind, Notre Dame.
I don't know, Tulane.
It'd be Aiden O'Connell of Purdue.
Oh.
Yep. Now he's projected to go, I believe, third day technically, but he can throw the ball. He kind of reminds me arm-wise, and people might call me crazy or considering the comparison to this quarterback is actually going a lot to Anthony Richardson, but he reminds me kind of a Josh Allen. Doesn't run as well as Josh Allen, but he can throw like Josh Allen. I think that pairs up really well. I don't know. He's probably technically more of a project than anybody, but to me, he's who I think honestly may end up with the best NFL career. Call me crazy.
Out of the 6 of them.
Mm-hmm. Out of the 6 I listed.
So you're not high on Bryce Young.
I'm not high on any, and this is the thing, I'm not high on really any of the quarterbacks. And this has led me to believe this is, I don't think, an all-time bad draft, but if it wasn't for the fact that Carolina was so desperate for a quarterback, or any of these top, like I said, any of the 3 teams in that top 8 are desperate for a quarterback, I wouldn't see where these guys really fall, to be quite honest. It reminds me a lot of the draft. It had to have been what? 4 or 5 years ago now. I can't remember who exactly it was, but the quarterback I always remember from the draft was Mississippi State's Kellen Mond, who ended up in Minnesota as a backup, and he ended up going, I think, in like the 2nd or 3rd round that year, but if he had waited the year and gone out as a senior as opposed to a junior, he would have been drafted in the 1st round because it was such a bad quarterback class. It reminds me a lot of this year, which it's funny how people kind of talk the quarterbacks up for this. If you can't get a concise as who's going number 1 out of this group, there's a reason why. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I know it's probably some agents playing agent and player playing player and stuff like that. There's probably a lot of smokescreen, but to me, none of the quarterbacks really did anything for me this year, to be completely honest. None of them. And frankly, if you were forcing me and boxing me in to take somebody from the top 5, I would just go Hendon Hooker, to be honest. He's just got the bigger body of work. I know what I'm getting out of him. I think he's maybe not quite plateaued necessarily in development, but he's the guy who I think you can plug in right away and probably get the most out of the teams that would need a quarterback in the first round.
Out of the 3 teams you mentioned, Carolina, Houston, and Indianapolis, offensively, who's got the best situation right now?
Oh man, the tough part is they don't get in that position to draft if they don't trade away DJ Moore. I would have been on board saying probably Carolina. And it still might kind of be them, but they don't. Whatever his name is now, Choice Anderson, right, or whatever, Chosen Anderson.
Yeah.
He's just not number 1. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Houston. DeMarco Ryans is a defensive-minded coach, you know. Part of me kind of leans Houston, but I mean, if you go for the immediate, I think it might be Indianapolis. Your run game is set up, you know, to kind of go the distance. You have enough of the intangible guys that I think you can kind of get by. So I think Indianapolis probably would be the place where one of these quarterbacks could go and really flourish to me. I don't know. I alluded to, I think I would go Hendon Hooker at number 1. I wouldn't go Bryce. I wouldn't go C.J. Stroud. I definitely wouldn't go Will Levis. He actually regressed in a lot of categories this year, to be honest with you. The one that stuck out to me was rushing. He actually rushed for minus 200 something yards this year. Not great, obviously. I know it's interesting considering I said a guy who had negative career rush yards, but when that just hasn't been his MO, that's been the case. Whereas Will, I think, ran for 300 something his junior year. So I don't know.
I got another question for you. For the hometown guys, where's Sean Tucker going? And when's he going?
Well, so that's the thing, right? I mean, you look at, say, the big board on ESPN, right? They have Bijan Robinson as the number 2 overall pick or prospect in the thing, and like they still have him as the 2nd overall pick prediction going to Houston, but we know that running backs don't get taken that high anymore. And if you do, you really have to be generational. And I don't know if Bijan's necessarily generational in that sense. I don't think so. It's weird. You look at Tucker; he's 18th on the running back big board on ESPN. That puts him as a Saturday pick. The 3rd day pick. He's such a. I wouldn't say he's truly multi-dimensional. I think if you're a Syracuse fan, I think you're going to see the early guys going would be Matthew Bergeron, offensive line-wise. I think he's projected out to be 2nd round right now. Has played both sides of the line. It's kind of funny that, to me, they always talk about footwork of a lineman and how his biggest criticism has been his lack of consistency with his footwork. And to me, it's always just kind of funny because it's always the people who never played line who really don't look at it. And don't get me wrong, footwork is important. That's where you get your drive from as a lineman, right, is your bottom half. But, if you're kind of – the thing is, if you're kind of leaning one way or another, right, pulls, stuff like that, your footwork's not going to be great in the first place. So somebody keep an eye on with that. And then, obviously, it's really, I'd say, the top end, maybe offensive prospect, to be honest, with Syracuse in the draft. You look at defense, and that's where it really shines through. Is if there's been a positive in the Syracuse football system here, the past 15 or so years, it's been defensively. They've been a very good pro churn out prospect pool from whether it's the Joneses up through the Robinsons, and now. Really in the secondary, oddly enough, not so much up on the front end with Garrett Williams this year. I know he's a 2nd day guy as well, more than likely. So looking forward to that.
They also get great punters.
Right. Well, not punters, no, kickers. We don't. Well, certainly Hofrechter is the outlier there. We don't talk about the punters. We have don't know if I didn't watch the spring game last week. But it sounds like the punter this year is going to be better than the one from last year. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who do you think? I'll toss it back over to you for a couple questions. If you're, Carolina and you're sitting there, the way it sounds are going with a quarterback, but who are you taking number 1?
Bryce Young.
So you're Bryce Young all the way.
Just Ohio State. I know Alabama quarterbacks are hit or miss too, but. The Ohio State quarterback scares me. I'm still not sold on Fields with the Bears. I know he had a decent year, had a pretty good year. I mean, they didn't win a lot, but so they got to give him another shot. So not high on Stroud, but it wouldn't shock me if Stroud had a great career. But I think if you're Carolina, you got to go with one of those two. I think the other 3 are just they got the potential, but I think it's just a risk at 1. So I'm going with Bryce Young. He's a winner. He's a gamer. Not a typical Alabama winner, but but he knows he's pretty good. So, and like you said, though, I don't know if there's a superstar quarterback here, but Carolina needs a quarterback right now, and I think he's their best option.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think to me the number 1, if I had to pick a number 1. I'm probably not even going on offense. I think I might go Jalen Carter from Georgia, and there is some baggage there with some legal stuff. He was part of that fatal car crash, and still I know has court stuff to go through and stuff like that in the process there. But, I mean, that guy is just very good. It's just funny to me how we go through, you get down, say, with just even the bowl season, right, in the college football playoff, and everybody kind of has this general consensus of a guy is number 1, right? And, that was Jalen Carter, to be quite honest. And all of a sudden it's kind of shifted and stuff like that. And obviously it changes, right? I think, if we're talking about, say, the Bears at that number 1 pick still, to be honest. Are we talking about Bryce Young at number one? Like, I don't think so. I don't think we're even talking about any quarterback at number one. I don't think quarterback's even probably in the top 10 of prospect pool, to be quite honest with you. But that's kind of the beauty of it. I think there's a lot of defense as opposed to that. And there's a lot of defense. Like I said, I look at this ESPN board, and there's a lot of defense, right? You get the first top two prospects in this are Bryce Young and Bijan Robinson, but then you have to go all the way down to number 9 and Peter Skoronsky from Northwestern, offensive tackle, to get to the next offensive guy at 9. And that's Richardson. You have a kind of a run then of a couple quarterbacks, and it's some offensive tackles. Dalton Kincaid is going to be an interesting name to keep an eye on at tight end. He's ranked 14th. I don't know fully about where that actually ends up with him. We always have a guy, talking about who we think might be in the green room the longest.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I think, unfortunately, and this is, again, I personally don't know where this is going to be. I could see that being, in all honesty, C.J. Stroud at this point, who's going to be in there for a while, potentially. I still think he'll go first round because there comes a point within each draft, no matter where you are, that you have your needs and stuff like that. But there also becomes a point where if you're, say, who would be a good fit for that this year? Kansas City really wouldn't be, I guess. Maybe like a Pittsburgh-type team, even though I'm trying to find more of them that made the playoffs. Maybe Baltimore kind of fits that bill a little bit better, where you kind of get to a point where it's like, okay, we have a need, but we would have to reach for a guy potentially. You just kind of take the best player on the board. That could be a C.J. Stroud scenario. I don't see him falling to day 2, but he could be a guy. And I don't know who's going to be at the draft this year, admittedly. I haven't looked up any of that. He gives me the vibe of a guy who might just fall if he doesn't get taken right away.
Thank God the draft first round is not 15 minutes anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
Is that what you want for our fantasy
brutal.
draft?
No.
15 minutes?
I want him to be 1, if that.
15 minutes is what I'm getting out of you.
I'll fight you.
Remember when he used to be 15? Brady Quinn. He was like 22nd pick, and that took forever.
Muscle hamster.
Yeah. But yeah, looking forward to it. I like the NFL draft. Not a bad 3 days.
All right, who makes a trade on draft night?
Well, I really
who do we think? Because I have an idea of who it could be.
I thought the Packers were going to stick it to Rodgers and trade him on draft day, just like how everything's happened. But him requesting a trade on draft day a year after they drafted Jordan Love without telling him. So, I think the Cowboys.
Think the Cowboys?
Trade up.
Well, here's the thing. I know Arizona wants to trade back, the way it sounds. I think the Cowboys, the Raiders at 7, I feel like they just might try and jump and grab somebody, so I don't know. But, yeah. I love how our first mindsets both go to the two teams who kind of act with very much so from the hip of a lot of things. So.
Cowboys always like to draft. They're dying for a winner.
Right.
Like a championship team. So they always trade up, so it wouldn't be surprising.
No, definitely not. All right, so that will take care of Fresh Takes for today then. A lot of claps around. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. So, Nick, who are you shouting out today?
Yeah, speaking of the NFL, I'll shout out my cousin Leah Marino. It's her birthday on Friday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Big Buffalo Bills fan, so happy birthday, Leah. Shout out.
Tough scenes for the Bills.
Yeah, I think a less pressured Bills season is better for them. They had too much pressure on them last year, and everything that went down with them last year, it was tough to come through. Just like Andrew McCutcheon last night. It was heartbreaking.
Why you have to do it that way?
But he did come through earlier in the game with
Yes, he did. He has come through in a big way multiple times this year for the Pirates.
Shout out Leah.
So, shout out to her. Happy birthday. 29, right?
29.
So, but yeah, if you guys haven't already, like, share, subscribe, all the fun stuff. We will be back next week, more than likely at this time again next Wednesday.
What seat will be sitting at?
Well, hopefully you'll be back in the chair. I'm going to have to diagnose that issue. So, We will talk with everybody then. Have a great weekend, everybody, and stay safe. Have fun.